Hey guys, welcome to a segment of Ask the Trainer. If you guys logging on live, excited to spend half an hour with you guys answering any questions that you have regarding training, cardio, nutrition, supplementation, contest prep, anything you guys like to cover. I appreciate, hey Mike, how are you? Hey baby Tana, how are you? I said baby Tana, like your little baby. Hey baby Tana. Thank you guys for jumping on here. For those of you guys watching in replay, kissy face Mike, I miss you buddy. Those of you guys watching on replay, if you have questions, you can drop them in the YouTube comment there, and we'll get back to you on that stuff. So yeah, you guys don't be shy. Ask questions. Hey Seth, how are you, bro? Hope you're good. We got to get a session in with Dwelly again soon. You guys don't be shy. Interrupt me. Just because of the number of questions that I got pre-sent, I'm gonna dive right into it. But you guys interrupt me. You're here live, so I'll definitely make sure that we hit time for your questions. And if I, hey Korean boy 817. I think by your picture. That might be Miko, but I'm not sure. So I'm here at Hidden Gym doing this live. It's been great to be back. We've been back for exactly 1 month today. Thank you guys for everyone that's been up here. We've had a strong comeback. It's been awesome. Seth, I am doing the Southwest USA on August the 1st. 6 weeks out, baby. Let's do it. What's up, Nando? All right, let me jump to some questions. I want to give you guys as much of my time as I can. You're a client of Casey's. Awesome, man. You're in good hands with Casey. All right, first question. How will coming off of a strict diet, that I love, affect my goals when learning to track my macros by myself? It should work great. I mean, if you learn how to monitor macros, you should only gain freedom without losing results. So if you learn how to substitute and you're able to really duplicate the same effectiveness of the diet, because all you're doing, like your caloric intake will be the same, your protein, carbs, and fats will be the same, even your timing can be the same, you're just changing the food substitutions. I do like, however, some people just prefer the strict diet because of the routine of it. It's easier to prepare. That's myself. I like strict diets. So there are trade-offs. But for people that want it to be a little more livable, meaning that they can make changes when they're at restaurants on the fly. You don't have to be so worried about what if they don't have my fish that I like to eat. You can know how to make those substitutions. So if done right, it shouldn't affect your results. All right, Mike Croson says, with that transition, how would you taper back the cardio? Transition to, I assume, from going from a strict diet to tracking macros was the question. I'm gonna take my own tangent though and talk about tapering back cardio. And we've got some questions here about my own prep too, and I'll take the chance to talk about it. So my goal with this prep was to do 50% less cardio. And I've implemented HIIT twice a week, and it's something I've really been getting into, and I'll talk about more when I have some questions around HIIT cardio. You guys probably might have seen the videos. My training partner Jeremy and Stephen Max, we've been doing these crazy HIIT workouts, Justin and Connor, and it's been really effective. I've been able to maintain less than 50% of my normal cardio volume, and I'm getting in shape much quicker, and the calories are actually a bit higher. So when it comes to cardio, and this is whether you're a weight loss client or a contest prep client, I tend to recommend the minimum effective dose, especially if your goal is body fat loss. You want to be able, HIIT stands for high intensity interval training. Great question there. That's a cardio method where you use maximum intensity followed by a rest period. So that method has so when you want the minimum effective dose. So your body's going to start to adapt to how much cardio you're doing, and you may usually you want to be able to up it without doing far too much. So you start with a minimal amount. Once you've adapted, you're able to increase it and get a new set of results. So there's some tidbits there for you about cardio and tapering it back. Speaking of HIIT, here we go. What's more effective for fat loss? This is a great question for you guys asking about HIIT. What's more effective for fat loss? HIIT or long sessions of low intensity cardio? I wouldn't say that either one is better unless there's some very specific parameters in place. In general, they work great together. HIIT cardio creates an oxygen deficit, which your body creates an increased energy demand for up to 12, 24, even 48 hours, which in short raises your metabolism. HIIT is great for metabolism boosting. It burns more calories over a couple of days. You get what's called an afterburn effect with HIIT cardio. So in that way, it's very effective. It's also very effective at improving your athletic conditioning and your heart. It's, you're stressing the heart, so you're going to get a lot of heart benefit from that. Low intensity cardio is beneficial in other ways. Also, you're working the heart in a different way. You're working endurance in a different way. And it's actually, when you're doing low intensity steady state cardio, and I'll asterisk this with if the timing and environment is right, you can burn fat for fuel. So if you understand energy systems, and I won't get too deep into this, but if you understand energy systems, HIIT cardio requires ATP, which is the fuel you use for 1 to 2 seconds. So short burst of energy, and it requires carbohydrates. If you don't have carbohydrates, HIIT cardio can be detrimental. If you are also in a carbohydrate deficit, low intensity cardio can be mainly effective. So those are two different ways. So that's timing dependent. It is diet dependent, it's training goal dependent, but in general, they're both very effective, and they are very effective when used together. So a combination of the two would be the best answer I got for you. All right, I missed some questions here, so I'm going to scroll back here for a second. Are you going to save your life for at least a day? I'm not sure what that means, so I'm going to skip that. Face is getting lean. What's up, D? How are you, bro? Yeah, it's coming on down, man. Don't worry, Chubby Cheeks will be back in no time. What's the minimum amount of time needed in HIIT for it to be effective? It doesn't take much. I don't know what the minimum amount would be, but I mean, you're talking about sprints in the 8 to 10 second range. So it can be very quick. And then your recovery time is going to be anywhere from 40 seconds to 2.5 minutes, depending on what the goal is. A 4-to-1 work to rest ratio or rest to work ratio is a pretty tried and true method. So we're talking 10 to 15 seconds of a sprint, multiply that by 4 to 5. So you're talking 40 to 50 seconds off, and then repeat. It's going to get hard. It's going to add up on you, especially and those sprints need to be all out. I should also caveat the last answer with HIIT's not good if you're injured. It's not good if it can start to take away from your strength training. So if you're pushing strength training to the max, it might start to take away from. If you do too much of it, it could hinder strength gains. And that's going to go straight into another question. It's perfect timing for this. Does HIIT hinder your muscle gains? If done right, send nudes. Oh God. If HIIT is done right, it should not hinder your muscle gains. It would cause an issue if you're in a huge calorie deficit and did too much of it. It would also cause an issue if you just did too much of it or did it at the wrong time. You wouldn't want to, for instance, do a HIIT workout and then try to train. You're going to have a negative response in your weight training. It's going to take away from the weight training session. But it should actually allow you to preserve more muscle. This is when you see articles written about HIIT cardio is when they show a very exaggerated example of low intensity versus HIIT, and you get the marathon runner and the sprinter. Who do you want to look like? Now that's obviously for effect. you probably want to do some of both and some in the middle. So those are two extremes, but it doesn't hinder muscle gains, and it should actually enhance it. So, and one thing that I don't think a lot of people talk about is you can train really, really hard when you start to get in really good condition, meaning your recovery time gets better, your resting heart rate is lower. When you start to really improve that condition, you can weight train like an animal. You're recovering faster in between sets. You can take sets longer because you're not winded. So in that way, I think that the benefits you gain from HIIT cardio on how it affects your training are hugely beneficial. All right, John B. Swole. Hey, Greg, any recommendations for someone young wanting to come up in the bodybuilding world? Man, I could do an hour on that one because I learned a lot of stuff wrong, and I've coached a lot of people that were doing it wrong. So I know I could spend a lot of time on that. But in general, let me just try to hit this straight. I would suggest hiring someone that knows what they're doing to save you from learning lessons the hard way. It's too much to learn. It's too customized to you, meaning you really have to understand your body. And if you're just starting, you probably don't. So I really think investing in a coach is one of the smartest things that you can do. And be selective. Don't hire someone that looks incredible. Not that they can't look incredible, but you want someone that knows why they look incredible and can also make other people look incredible, because oftentimes the people that look the best are very gifted, and what worked for them might be the ass backwards for you. And so you have to take advice from someone that knows lots of different body types. That being said, you want to train very basic. You want to get your strength up. You want to focus on compound lifts. You want to eat clean, but get a lot of calories in. So you need to start building your physique. And I think you should start competing after 1 to 2 years max. I don't think that you need to try to train for 5 years to build up the muscle mass that it requires to compete, because I think after 1 to 2 years, you start to get a diminished return on muscle gain. And I think if you compete and then rebound and then compete and then rebound, you'll really start to hone in your physique. And if you take that route in 5 years, you're going to be far better than the guy that never competed for 5 years. And a big part about success in bodybuilding is your conditioning, and you can't get all the way conditioned your first time. It's nearly impossible unless you're very naturally lean. So I think the faster you can get on stage and start teaching your body to lean, you got to get that baby fat off. This is fat that's been on you since you were a child, and it's not going to come off the first time. So you're going to have to diet after diet. You're going to get into better condition. So 1 to 2 years to build a base, and then start competing and hire a coach. That's my recommendations. Let's see. Tana's saying he can save it 24 hours on his story. I'm also, I'm recording this, so I'm going to put it on my YouTube channel. If you want to drop me your email address in DM, I will send this recording out. Sonia's on the line. Sonia, you freaking kicked ass in the gym today. Devin, what's up, dude? How do you get your trap so jacked? Looking good, Traposaurus Rex, man. That's all shrugs and heavy back. Greg, only hits for 3 hours straight. No, you should not do HIIT for 3 hours straight. We're talking about 10 to 20 minute workouts max. Sebastian, how are you, buddy? Hey, Steph, how are you? I hope Killer Fit Camp is crushing it. I've been watching your stuff. You're doing great. Leslie, hey, guys. All right, let's get to some more questions. You guys interrupt me at any time. Leo, what's up, dude? You guys interrupt me at any time with more questions that you have, and I'm going to keep moving through my list because I got a lot of questions pre-submitted. What should clients expect when starting out on a new program, and how often should they record biometrics for goal tracking? Expectations is a hard one to answer generally. It definitely depends on what you've been doing and where you want to go. So I think if you haven't been doing much, hey Sarah, if you haven't been doing much, you can expect more results. So the more green you are, green meaning new, to training and dieting, you obviously have way more potential for change than someone that's been training for years. And you see this in weight loss clients, for instance, that need to lose a large amount of weight, right? Say that somebody needs to lose 100 pounds. The first 40, physiologically, is going to be easier. It might be harder mentally, emotionally, things like that. But physiologically, the first 40 pounds is going to come off faster because it's newer, and it's, your body doesn't want an extra 40 pounds of weight on it. It's going to come off. The further you get into that, the harder it becomes. And, I think I have had a client, Yuri, he does a lot of content with me. I'm sure you guys know him, that did lose 100 pounds. And I think he would attest that the last 10 pounds were much harder than the first 10 pounds, right? So the further you go, the more advanced you get, the harder results become to achieve. Same with gaining muscle. To put on 10 pounds of muscle as a beginning lifter, you haven't done anything. Like, your body's so ready to make changes. Your bench press might go from 100 pounds to 300 pounds in 6 months. Now, if you've been training, hey Tana, how are you? If you've been training for 10 years and you want to put 200 pounds on your bench press, like, anyone that's been training a long time knows that that's like a huge joke, right? So that would be the best way. Like, if you're just starting, expectations can be high if you hold yourself accountable. Hey Angel, how are you? Linda, we miss you too, Linda. You got to come by and see us. And then it gets harder as you go. So that's the best way I could really answer that question generally. So if you have further questions, Aaron, I believe that one question was from you. Feel free to let me know. And as far as tracking my biometrics, I love to nerd out on stats. So I really think it's up to you. I think sleep tracking is awesome, and it's one of those things where you can really optimize a lot of things to learn. Alona, how are you? You can really learn a lot about what's going on with your sleep. Obviously, meal tracking is huge. That's not really a biometric, though. That's not what you're talking about. I'm a huge advocate for heart rate monitors. I think the best way I've heard it put, and I really have gotten into this with my clients and myself lately, is doing cardio without a heart rate monitor is kind of like lifting weights without knowing what's on the bar. Like, you don't really know what's going on. Heart rate monitors, especially during exercise, are great. General activity trackers are really good. Honestly, I don't think that there's too much data that you can collect. Just, keep it all in perspective is what I would say. And then as far as body fat tests go, I don't like to do body fat tests more frequently than quarterly. Usually more like twice a year. Frank, is 6 hours of sleep okay, or will it hurt your weight loss? 6 hours is less than optimal, and it could very well interrupt both muscle gain and fat loss. So you want a certain amount of recovery and hormonal response from your sleep. Usually that's happening in the 7, 8 plus. I know that I worked with some professional athletes that had a lot access to some very interesting sleep data, and they were recommended to sleep. They're spending 9 hours in the bed. So that's honestly, like, I try to sleep until I wake up as often as possible, and I can hardly ever get 8. Like, it's so I don't know. It's different per person. But yeah, 6 hours for most people is gonna be compromised. And so I wear this Polar watch to bed every night. I'm sure Tana loves it when it like lights up in her face. But because when you move, it lights up. But it'll tell you your deep sleep and your REM sleep, and it also tell you your ANS recharge. So that's your nervous system, and if it becomes compromised, then you're leaving a lot of results on the table. Which body fat test do you prefer? DexaFit, water submersion? Both. They're very, very comparable. Because we have a submersion body fat test here. Unfortunately, due to permitting, it's not functioning yet. Geez, I know I've been working on it for 1.5 years, but they're very comparable with body fat and lean muscle tissue. The only edge that I would give to DEXA, I believe it's like a hair more accurate. So for most, as long as you're getting the same test, I don't think it matters so much. But where I would give the edge to DEXA is that it shows fat distribution. So you're actually going to see a graph of your body, and you're going to see where the body fat is. And that can sometimes give you some insight into why you're holding body fat. For instance, cortisol related body fat might gather more in the midsection, especially in men. So you could see some, if you have like trouble spots, you might actually be able to see on the DEXA scan limb by limb and in your trunk where the body fat is actually held. So that would be the one thing that I would give a nod to on DEXA. Okay, here's kind of a different question. How did you get so, and it's flattering, so I might turn red when I read it, but it says, how did you get so bold, aggressive, and confident with all of your goals in and out of the gym? Was it there naturally or something you had to cultivate or constantly work on? That's a flattering question, so thank you for the individual that wrote that, but I did want to bring it up because I think it's a very cool thing to talk about. I think that confidence definitely needs to be exercised. Some people are naturally confident, but I do think that there are things that you can do to become more confident, and the more confident that you become, the more that it will start to compound and build on itself. So, everyone gets scared, and I think making bold moves, whether that's in your career or competing, which I know this individual made a bold move to compete, and I'm sure that grew your confidence. Everyone gets scared that they're going to fail. Everyone gets scared of what the people are going to think, but it's the people that do it anyways that gain more confidence and empower themselves to be more bold. So that was, I wanted to touch that question there for a second. Tana says, do you recommend food testing to help target bloating, inflammation issues? Definitely. There's so much data out there that you can gather about yourself now that it's absolutely crazy. And, I've actually, knock on wood, never had any of those issues myself. So I can't I personally haven't done it, but I have had a heck of a lot of clients that have done it. And it's one of those weird things where the foods you eat the most tend to be the ones you're the most sensitive to. So that's where, you start to learn the importance of variety in your diet, because for whatever reason, if you eat the same thing too much, you can start to develop sensitivities. So those tests are I think extremely valuable. That's great information to know, because if you're getting inflamed from chicken and you eat chicken 4 times a day, obviously you're going to have some issues that could it lead to injury? It could, inflammation has issues, all kinds of different issues that it causes. But I definitely think that's worth the investment. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, they're not that expensive. They're not cheap. But I know that most of my clients that have done that through Rachel Shear. She does a ton of testing like that. So she would be my recommendation to help you with some things like that. All right, Megan says, I get stressed and confused about matching the weight workouts. Does it make much difference which workouts do I choose to work out at the gym by myself? I would say, without fully understanding the question, I would say definitely it does. You shouldn't, if you want optimal results, let me say that. the one part of me wants to say that you should move every day. And if you're want to be healthier than 90% of the world, go to the gym, do what you like, be active. If you want to maximize your results, which now we're talking about probably less than 3% of the population, if you want to maximize your results, you don't want to just go to the gym and do stuff. There's so much to be said about quality programming. How do you plan the workout? How do you plan the week? How do you plan the month? How do you plan the year? Those can all have strategies that will help your results. I would really suggest, Megan, I do a muscle building 101 class. It's also completely free. And we talk about all that stuff. And sometimes it can be overwhelming, but you would gain a ton from it. So try to keep an eye out for my muscle building 101 class. And for those of you guys listening, not only do I do a muscle building 101 class, but I teamed up with Chris Prosser, who's working on my coaching staff now with mainly nutrition. Together, him and I do a fat loss nutrition 101 seminar, and it's freaking good. You guys are gonna like it, so keep an eye out for those. Kelvin says, teach me your ways, Greg. Well, you're here, you're learning, man. You got step 1 down. Korean Boy A17, what is your typical day like? Man, I'll try to run through this quick, but I usually wake up around 5:30 or 6. I don't open my phone for, I try not to do it until 7, but I'll read for about half an hour. And then I have a few like goal setting activities that I do. And then I get on the phone, I get on the computer, and I freaking start hammering it out. And then I'll eat breakfast. I try to eat with Tana when I can, and we eat breakfast, and then I don't head to the gym. I usually kind of work from home, and I might do morning cardio. And I try to get to the gym around 10 because I stay here till, usually 7:30, 8 at night. And I'm at the gym training clients, working, doing meetings, training myself until 8 o'clock at night or so. And then I go home and hang out on the couch with Tana and our new dog, Boss. Do you recommend blood type diets? Man, I've heard about blood type diets for a long time, and I never saw any evidence that made me want to try it or made me want to recommend a client for it. So I can't really say. There's nothing that I've seen that really propelled me to think that was a leaf that I needed to turn over. Is walking sideways on a Stairmaster really as effective as walking straight? The only thing I could say there is sometimes when, you can walk sideways. Honestly, like the goal of cardio usually is to keep your heart rate in a certain zone. So it really doesn't matter how you walk. If your heart rate's in the right place, you can do whatever the hell you want on the Stairmaster. But a lot of times you'll see people doing that, and they might be trying to drive from the heel, because sometimes a stair is pretty short and you end up on your toes. And so some people like to use cardio. They try to push through their heel because you get more glute and hamstring with heel drive than you do with toe drive. So they'll go side to side and really think about going heel to heel, heel to heel. Where do I get more info about your one-on-one? Megan, feel free to send me a message and we will take care of you. That's exactly why we should have a coach. Yeah, Tana knows. Tana's a coach, pro coach. Chris, welcome, buddy. I just was talking highly of the Fat Loss 101 seminar. We've got more of that coming soon. Frank wants to work on the glutes. There you go. There's a little glute tip for you, Frank. All right, next preloaded question, and I'll give you guys a 5-minute warning here. I'm going to log off in 5 minutes. So if you got any last questions, please fire away. I've got one last question. Some of these are kind of repetitive, so I'm going to pick one more question from my pre-ones, but if you guys have any last ones. Alyssa, I hope you're at home doing a dance. Should I take a break from intermittent fasting, or should I continue with it as a daily routine? Intermittent fasting, let's talk about that for a second. So this particular person, what up, G-Dog? This particular person wants to know if they should stick with intermittent fasting. I would tell you the best diet is the one that works. I've found with intermittent fasting that the people that like it because it's simple. It's very easy to say, because diet can be complicated, right? There's a lot to consider. But it's very simple to say, okay, I'm going to eat from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. And that's like, how simple is that? Like, you don't have to worry about all this different stuff. Like, you're just going to make some time constraints. And usually what happens is people can't overeat during that short of a window. It's pretty easy to do, but generally it's easier not to overeat when you shorten the amount of time. So I would say if intermittent fasting is working for you and it fits your lifestyle, then stick with it. If you don't like really care, and like eating throughout the day doesn't necessarily, you've got strong discipline, it's not my favorite. I prefer smaller, more frequent meals, for a few different reasons. I think that it speeds up your metabolism. I think you absorb nutrients better when you eat them in smaller dosages. And it's just what's worked better for me. I know that there'll be science people that would argue me up and down, and they're way smarter than me, but at the end of the day, it's what's worked better for me and my clients. And so that's the most evidence that I really ever need to make decisions. So I think optimal is smaller, more frequent meals. But if intermittent fasting is good for you, then stick with it. All right, coach says, how much do you taper intensity, if at all, in the tail end of a prep? I would say that you don't taper intensity, but you would taper, maybe you could make the argument, you definitely taper load. You don't want to try to be setting PRs right, when you're close to a show. You don't want to be taking stuff past failure when you're getting ready for a show, unless it's very light. So the whole thing here, right, is like you want to look your best on stage. So you need to preserve muscle mass. And let's be real, if you're getting ready for a show and you're trying to get in peak condition, your calories are low, your cardio's probably high, you're in a huge deficit. What you don't want to do is freaking hurt yourself and ruin the last 16 weeks of your life. So you just got to remember that, like, okay, my training here is more about preservation of muscle. And not to say that you should train like a wuss, because you still it takes a certain amount of intensity and weight to maintain your look, but you don't want to hurt yourself, so you got to be smart. You're welcome, guys. Mac, real quick here. How do you determine carb to fat ratio when going into a caloric deficit? So that's a great question, and it's a hard one to answer, like everything, because it depends on a whole lot of stuff. So I would say first question would be, what kind of training and cardio are you doing? I think that it's important to match your diet with your activity. So if you're weight training and you're doing low intensity stuff, you could get away with a low carb diet. If you're weight training, high volume weight training and doing HIIT cardio, you're gonna need carbs. So that would lend me to recommend a higher carb, lower fat diet. So that would be like activity level is the first thing I would think about. And then the second thing I would think about is body type. So some people are great at processing a lot of carbohydrates, meaning they can eat a lot of carbs. Their weight might go up temporarily, but they clear them out quickly because they metabolize carbs fast. Some people don't. Some people store carbohydrates as body fat, very easy. And then the same vice versa. Some people metabolize fat very well. And that can be changed a little bit. You can alter your metabolism a little bit. Like endurance athletes get very efficient at using fat, and therefore they can eat more fat. Athletes like bodybuilders, powerlifters, athletes like that, they are going to be very efficient at using carbohydrates because they're doing short bursts of work and they get used to metabolizing carbs. There isn't a lot of fat for fuel activity going on in their life. So I would say like your biggest things to consider there would be body type. And you can get testing done if you don't have the patience or the know-how to know what your body does. There's some genetic testing you can do. I would recommend Fitness Genes. They're out of the UK. We're going to start selling the kits up here at Hidden Gym soon. But they can tell you if you're a carbohydrate-driven physique or a fat-driven physique, and that will save you a lot of time, because the more you can tailor your nutrition to yourself, the better your results are going to be. So, all right, guys, that's all I got time for. It's about 35 after 7. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for excellent questions. I hope you guys got a lot from that. I hope I didn't miss any questions either. I tried to do my best keeping up. Like I said, if you missed some of this or you would like to get this sent to you, I'll email it to my list. But if I don't have your email, please send me your email address and I will pass the recording over to you. So thank you guys. Have a great night. I appreciate you all, and I'll talk to you soon.